Hello, and the warmest of welcomes to episode 8 of Not If, But When, the podcast which answers all of the questions you've ever had about all things funeral, and many of the ones which may never even have occurred to you. My name is Kirstie Atherton. I'm an independent celebrant, and I'm based in the Northwest.
And I'm Lyndsey Conquest. I'm also an independent celebrant and I'm based in Bedfordshire. So, welcome to episode 8, where we're talking all about direct cremations. If we were to talk funeral trends, which I know we're going to dedicate an entire future episode to, then direct cremations would need to be right at the top of the list.
It really would, wouldn't it? I think it's
Yeah.
safe to say that direct cremation has just rocketed into the funeral industry and made quite an impact, really. Um, Linz, enlighten us all. What do we mean when we say that a cremation is direct?
Okay, so a direct cremation is a cremation which takes place without any service. So the body is collected by a funeral director, and the family have no other involvement until the ashes are returned to them. The funeral director is guardian of the body. They take it to the crematorium, and then they leave it in the care of the crematorium staff, and that's it.
Yeah, so really what we're saying is it's no family involvement, really, aren't we, in that
Yeah,
process. It's worth noting that most slots for direct cremations, sometimes called unattended cremations, are first thing or last thing in a crem's working day. Um, but I have noticed here locally, and I'd be interested to see if you feel the same, Lyndsey, that some crematoriums are changing a little bit now, and they are allowing for a small number of people to be in attendance, just to have a sit sort of in the same premises, and even allowing a piece of music to be played. So no service as such, but a little tiny bit of involvement, which I thought it was quite an interesting development. But I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about the whole thing, really.
yeah, yeah.
We've
So
had many conversations, haven't we,
we
about this?
have, yeah,
Mm.
and it is on offer here as well. It started at one of the crematoriums, and then I think um the funeral directors, one of the funeral directors I work with, encouraged the other crematorium to offer the same because they felt that
Mm.
we shouldn't have one crematorium offering it and
Yeah,
not the other. And
agreed.
it's
Yeah.
it's sort of a 10-minute attended service by a max. I think it's a maximum of 6 people.
Yeah, it's
10
tiny, isn't it?
minutes,
Mm.
one piece of music, and no service. They're literally
Yeah.
there just to have that time in there. And that there is still a slight charge for that. It isn't just
Yes.
done as a direct cremation fee. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, but I feel that it maybe is important to allow some families that maybe haven't got that option, or maybe there is only just one or two relatives and they just don't want to have that service with just them. It just still
Mm.
gives them that time to say goodbye and to be there at the crematorium. But then you can also do that at a chapel of rest at the funeral directors. So I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you think? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on it?
Oh, I find it similarly difficult because I kind of think that it becomes something that's a bit more confusing then. So
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about a direct cremation, that's quite clear that that's what's happening, that there's no involvement, there's no service, and that's an option,
Yeah.
and if that feels fitting, that feels like what you want to do, fine. I kind of think when you then have the opportunity for a couple of people to be there, for a piece of music to be played, I kind of think the same as you, almost kind of what for,
Yeah.
because if that's a chance to sit and say that farewell kind of internally, do you do that in that space? Now, I don't know whether, maybe you might, Lyndsey, I'd be interested, whether if you can have like 6 in attendance and a piece of music, is the coffin on the catafalque, or does the coffin just go straight into the back anyway?
Yes, the coffin's on the catafalque, as
It
far as I
is,
know.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so that does put a slightly different slant on, because you are then spending time with the body, aren't you? So that
yeah,
is slightly different.
yeah,
Um, but I've got to be totally honest, the whole thing gives me the ick. And I get it. I get that, that there's a need for them, that some
hmm
people have no family. that some people have no people who want to go and say goodbye to them, and that some people think that they can't afford anything else.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether that's necessarily really, it's definitely not the main motivating factor. So to go back to Dying Matters report, which we've yacked on about a number of times,
Yeah.
haven't we? So I was looking at the reasons why people said that they'd chosen a direct cremation. And I found it really, really interesting. 39% said that it was at the request of the deceased. And I think that's something that we need to talk about particularly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So shall we start with that? Shall we start with
Yeah, let's start
hmm,
with that. You could probably tell I was quite keen to go with that. Yeah, I
do it?
think
I
that
can
is
see it
something
busting
we
out of your
do
lips.
need to discuss. Yeah, so my worry with that is the number of people that I hear say that they're choosing for a direct cremation because they want to take the pressure and the stress off of their family. And
Yep.
not only have I heard that directly from people, I've
Mhm.
seen it heavily advertised as the reason for choosing a direct cremation is to
Yeah.
take the stress and pressure off your loved ones. You're doing them a favor, and it actually upsets me and
Yeah. Me too.
infuriates me. Yeah,
Yeah, me too. I think that's really kind of exploitative, actually. And that's what
yeah,
makes me really cross about it. I like that people have the option to do it if they want to, but but because we're in such a death illiterate society, people I don't think have the correct level of information to be able to make that an informed choice, if that
no.
makes sense. So what I mean is we don't sit and talk about funerals. We ignore it until we can't ignore it anymore because somebody has died. Um, but if we did, we would be able to be more aware of what a funeral is for. So a funeral is for the people who are living. A funeral is for
Yeah.
those people to help process that loss. That's what it's for. Um, I've mentioned this before to you about a situation I had where a very elderly lady had told two family members that that's what she wanted. She wanted a direct cremation. One family member said, okay, fabulous, we'll do that. The other family member said, oh, okay, why? And when they had a conversation about it, her motivation, this elderly lady, was she was saying, I don't want to put you through the upset of a funeral. I don't want you to be upset. And the point is that you are upset because somebody has died. You are not upset because there is a funeral. The funeral done well, which I know is something that's a
Hmm.
whole other discussion that we're particularly passionate about, but done well can be the most healing, comforting, forward progressing thing that you can actually do. And I worry that direct cremation takes that away from people. It
Yeah.
concerns me a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And, I've had two families that I've worked with recently who have come to me directly because their family member had chosen a direct cremation and they were
Mhm.
adamant that that's what they wanted. The
Mhm.
family respected their wishes, but were then sat there not knowing what to do, actually not knowing what to do with their grief and
Yeah, where to
where
put
to
it.
channel their feelings and
Mhm.
what now, where do we go from here? And
Yeah,
they rang me, and that's exactly what they said. We
yeah,
need to do something. We've respected their decision,
yes,
but
yeah,
we can't cope with that decision in ourselves. We've all
yeah.
decided that we have to do something. And then you'll have the memorial, and actually
Mm.
then I'm not so against it. I think as long as the family are giving that or having that opportunity to grieve
Mm.
together, to support one another, as
Yeah,
well as to remember the happy times and to come together and have that celebratory tone as well. I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
that's a good thing. But I think when you're having the direct cremation and that is it,
Mm.
that is
Yeah,
a
I do
whole
think
different story.
it is, yeah. And I do think, as you say, that if there is a chance then to join together and do some kind of memorial, I do think that is a better option.
Yeah,
And that's a way of um honoring somebody's wishes, but also, taking care of your own grief.
yeah,
My one caveat there, my one issue there is that there is lots of research about how it is really important to have the visual of the loss in order to
Yeah.
properly accept and compute and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And as much as, you know, people have weird feelings about coffins and don't like seeing them, and, you know, seeing the coffin, seeing the shroud, seeing the body in that way does something, I think, on a kind of primeval sort of level where you have
Hmm.
to realize, yes, they're gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone dies, is removed, and the next thing you get back an urn of ashes, I'm not, I feel like we're skipping there a part that we need, that a lot of mammals do, you know, that
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
some kind of, you know, I'm going to use elephants as the example,
Yeah.
you know, they need to do that, and I think we do too, you know,
Yeah.
and that
Definitely.
bothers me.
Yeah. And I think interestingly, actually, one of these families that did come to me, they did
Mm.
still opt for the short 10 minutes in the crematorium with the coffin
Oh,
present. So they had that. They
interesting.
didn't have a direct cremation. They had that
Yeah,
small attended service.
yeah,
So at least the immediate family did have that time. But yeah, I do totally agree
yeah.
with you. I think
But
it's
in that situation, I wonder what's that for then? Just have a funeral. If
yeah,
you're going to have 10 minutes, no
yeah,
dissing on this family at all, like
yeah,
not at all. And you know, I know that I have strident opinions about things, but I do still totally respect when people want to do other,
yeah,
you know, other options. I totally get it. But in that situation, was that request for a direct cremation honoured? Because
yeah.
there was a body there was a coffin there, people did sit with it.
Mm,
You know, which bit of it does the person want to get rid of? I mean, I find very often that direct crems seem to be something that people particularly see advertised maybe on TV.
yeah.
I didn't realize that this happened as much, but until I
Mm,
had a really bad cold at Christmas and was doing a lot of lying on the sofa, and I thought,
yeah.
oh my God. And the programs that they were strategically placed in, you know,
Yes.
that gave me issues. You know, I
Yeah.
don't particularly like the term ambulance chasing, but
Yeah.
it did feel very much like targeting towards people who were vulnerable.
Yeah.
um you know, and I've seen it where, you know, people will come into a funeral director and they'll just say, you know, I saw this thing on the telly, do you do it here? You know, yeah, we do. Okay, let me pay for it now, and it's over and it's done. And they
Yeah.
may not even have had those conversations with people.
Yeah.
um you know, largely they haven't, and they're doing it out of love. They're doing it because they're thinking,
Mm,
oh, I'm saving loads of hassle here. And
yeah.
interestingly, the figures, the cost of dying figures do reflect that. So of the people who did opt for a direct cremation, the reasons they gave were fascinating, because my
Mm,
initial thought would have been, that's a price related thing, and I get it. I get why, you know,
yeah.
because it is a massive cost, it's a massive
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah.
But interestingly, only 12% of those people who did opt for direct cremation said it was because of a financial reason. It was because they felt they couldn't afford a funeral, which was, I don't know about
That
you,
is, yeah.
it's so
Surprise.
low. It's really
Yeah.
surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the top
Yeah.
three reasons, which were 30%, 27%, 26%, were they thought it would be simpler to organise, they thought it would be quicker to organise, and they thought it would be less stressful to
Yeah.
organise.
Yeah.
And my issue there is, if those are the reasons that you're choosing it for, and there's potential for that choice to hinder the healthy progression of your grief, then it's on the industry to make sure that people understand it doesn't have to take a long time to organize. It doesn't have to be a complex thing to organize or a stressful thing to organize. Actually, it's on us to make it loads easier then, if that's why
Yeah.
people are choosing it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's where I'm coming
definitely.
from
Yeah.
it.
No, yeah,
Mm.
I agree. If if you're working with a good celebrant, a good funeral director, it shouldn't be more stressful. You should be having the
No,
support and the help to organize what you want with the, with the least stress, and practical stress. That's what we and the funeral directors are there to do, isn't it? And to
exactly.
help with
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and
I don't know about you. I very often find myself saying to families, yeah, don't worry about that. That's on me.
Yeah.
You know, when if like they talk for ages and ages and ages and hours, and you've got like 15 pages of notes, and oh God, oh, I've really gone on. And I say, no, no, you haven't. That's
Yeah.
why you've got us, because we
Exactly.
we are trained to then get all of that information and be able to communicate it in a way that you lose none of the content,
Yeah.
but you do it in a succinct way. That's what we're
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. And of course, you do get some of those families that part of the grieving process for them is doing a lot of the practical stuff and the writing. But I do come across a lot of families who have worked with different celebrants over the years who
Mm.
actually feel that the pressure is on them to do that and to write the
Really?
eulogy. Yeah.
Gosh,
And
that's
that's been a
horrifying.
recent thing that I've found. So
Wow.
I always say to families, if writing the eulogy, if
Mhm.
speaking, if writing something, if doing X, Y, or Z is part of what you need to do to help you,
Yeah.
then you must do it because it's right for you.
Oh,
But if
absolutely.
any
Yeah.
of this feels too much and that actually it's not something that you would want to be doing, then that's why you've got me and that's why I'm
Yeah.
here, and I'm here to do that for you. And there are no expectations for you to
Yeah.
take on any of this unless it's actually helping you in the process of your grieving and you're going
Yeah.
through the emotions of what's happened. And I think that's, yeah. So,
Yeah. No, exactly right. I totally agree with you. Totally
mm,
agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're for, isn't it? To
yeah,
take that away. And that's what your
yeah,
FD should be for as well.
yeah,
I mean, I get that it's more complicated to organize in the sense that there are more elements to it,
mm,
but we don't not do things because they're complicated. We
yeah,
don't say like, oh, my child is 5 today. It's a bit more complicated organizing a party for them than it would be if we just, got a pizza and just the family sat at home like that.
yeah,
We don't put those special things off. I mean,
mm,
weddings. Imagine if people
yeah,
put weddings off because they were complicated. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's just a whole shift in the way that we look at things. But yeah, and there are a place for them. And I'm not, if somebody has
yeah,
opted for one, please don't for a minute think that I think you've done a bad thing or a wrong thing. Um, because I'm all for people making decisions for that
yeah,
for what's best for them. But as long as they've been given the information to,
yeah,
because
yeah.
otherwise it's not an informed choice, is it?
No, that's
And
it. And
that's
the
not fair.
informed, yeah, the informed decision is what's important to us, isn't it? And that's why
Yeah.
we're having this conversation because,
Yeah.
if a person has requested a direct cremation, then, their loved ones will want to honor that, but then that's sort of
Yeah, of
sometimes
course.
adding to their stress. And to everyone, as you've said, everything is done out of love. Everyone's
Mhm.
doing what they can and they're making the decisions
Absolutely.
they feel are right for their families. So
Yeah.
we're just trying to say, just look at the options, maybe listen to us, listen to other people out there.
Well,
But
definitely listen to us.
yes, please listen to us and have a bit more of a chat about these things before you make
Yeah.
that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
If someone's opting for a direct cremation because they think they're saving heartache from their family, I
yeah,
feel like I can say with confidence, no, you are not.
yeah,
You are
yeah.
not.
The
Um,
heartache's there, the
it
pain is
is.
there.
It is. And what the
Yeah,
funeral is a chance to heal. It's a
yeah,
chance to start to make it feel a little bit better. But
yeah.
yeah, but you're always reluctant, aren't you? Like, because you say to people like your feelings about direct crems and them not being particularly positive. Yeah, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Because it's doing
That's
you a lot
it.
of work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what, yeah. But for us, I think, work wise, as I think you are, we still get contacted for memorials and things
Mm,
like that. And I think there was some interesting statistics that you said about, or I think a couple of episodes ago, where the number of people that were having a direct cremation and
mm,
still having some sort of memorial
yeah.
afterwards.
Oh yeah, they were
So,
huge. Yeah. Yeah.
but for us, it's just about, yeah, making sure that people are not scared of funerals and that they know their choices. And, I had someone recently who had never been to a funeral and they were going to their dad's funeral. And he said, I just don't know what to expect. And I'm really
Mm,
worried. And, but once you've given them all the options and they've actually
yeah.
been there for that service, and then
Yeah.
you see them come out and they say to you, wow, that was really lovely. And dad would have
Yeah.
loved that. And then,
Yeah.
so we see the positive impact that a really good funeral has.
Yeah.
on people, and that's why we're
Yeah.
here talking about it so passionately, because we know that you can have a really good funeral and a funeral that's just right for you and your loved one and the rest of
Yeah.
your family. So don't be scared of it. Just,
Yeah.
talk about it and look at your
Yeah.
options, and don't run away from it at the first opportunity, because it sounds like the best or the easiest option.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Yeah, I actually think that's probably a beautiful point to round up on because I think you're absolutely
yeah,
right there. Yeah, it's
yeah,
seeing those people, isn't it? It's seeing that relief and that sense of, oh yeah, you were right. Yeah, we needed
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it's
definitely.
about.
Yeah. So, well, that's us then, I think, for this one. So, as
I
usual,
think so.
we are hoping that you all enjoyed this episode of Not If But When, and that you now feel maybe a bit more empowered to discuss direct cremation as an option when discussing these things with your loved ones, and just have a chat with them and see how they feel, and yeah, open up the discussions.
Yeah, sound advice, Lyndsey. Absolutely wise as ever. So thank you for lending us your ears once more. If you're finding our funeral chats interesting, informative, or whispery, possibly even slightly diverting or even entertaining, then do please feel free to spread the word. You'll find a new episode of Not If But When released every Friday on Spotify at the Cracker Sparrows.
You certainly will. And on next week's episode, we are going out in style by taking a deep dive into funeral transport before we bring you a new series of episodes which take a slightly different turn.
Lyndsey, I love it when you're mysterious. So until then, clutch on to your excitement and embrace your life whilst embracing the inevitable.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.